So introduce yourself. Give our audience a little bit of Evan Day. What drives you?
Yeah, sure. My name's Evan. I've been working in marketing for, I hurts me to say this now, but for about 14, 15 years. I can't believe I've been in the workforce for that long. But my entire career, I've been in marketing. I started in data analytics. I have hold a master's degree in data science, kind of worked my way up the corporate ladder. I'm right now a VP of marketing at BriteCap Financial, which is a fintech. I'm on the side pursuing a PhD in psychology, which is focused on decision making, really understanding how the brain ticks, what makes the brain tick, really intertwining that in marketing and, really understanding like the how and why I think is super powerful. Um, so it's fascinating to me to see how like, a logo placement or a color change could shift the whole identity, could shift where people are looking, could shift how many people take action. Marketing is super cool. I have a creative side. It's a lot of fun to kind of build things and see how they work. And it's never ending. You could always be better. You could always try something new. So I think that's the cool part to me.
What I'm hoping to do today is to leverage your expertise and help companies and organizations navigate the communications world. And marketing often gets confused with things like branding and messaging. There's a bunch of different words people use to describe marketing when it's actually something pretty specific. So, what assumptions do you find most people make about marketing, and how far is that from reality?
Yeah. Well, first, how much time do we have? Because I could
We
probably
have
go
a
for hours about the assumptions in marketing.
Yeah.
So first of all, thanks for having me. It's great to see you again. Um, so I've been in marketing for 15 years, so there are just so many assumptions that run through my head. I think the biggest one that people probably see as well is, oh, you work in marketing, you post on social media, or oh, you work in marketing, you make things look nice or make things look cool. It's just so much more than social media. It covers the entire business. It's social media, it's branding, anything that your brand is on. So that goes from the website, social media, emails, all the way to contracts. Like people don't think contracts touch marketing. That's customer facing. That might, in fact, be one of the most important pieces of marketing because that's when someone's signing on the dotted line for your product. Um, you have to be very technical. Not, of course, not everybody, but you should have very technical people within marketing. They need to set up the pipes between all your systems. If you're throwing thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars in these multi-channel campaigns, and your data is not flowing properly and working together, you're wasting away money. So you'd have someone who's technical, who can do all the wiring, set up all the pipes to have the data. Be great to have someone who's analytical. Marketing is very, very analytical, so you can see what's working, what's not working. If they're really good at what they do, you can kind of predict and build predictive models. That falls within marketing, which very few people realize. But it's great to be at a place to say, I have $10,000 in spend. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. I've modeled that I'll get this as a result. Um, so, long way to say marketing goes from the very, very first time someone sees your company logo to beyond, to signing the contract, to, upselling, cross-selling, renewing the customer experience, keeping that customer, brand loyalty. So pretty much anything you could think of, marketing touches, and that would be the biggest assumption.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Well, I'm really glad that you said that because oftentimes when I go into a meeting about brand, which is like this all-encompassing, holistic view of not only the company's inner workings, but its outward-facing image, a lot of people have in their mind that that's marketing. And marketing is definitely a part of brand, but they're not synonymous with each other. And so marketing's role in branding, I think, gets lost sometimes when companies don't have a solid brand and their marketing tends to be a bit scattered as a result. Um, what have you ever run into those instances, and how would you help companies integrate marketing into their strategy sessions, into building business strategies? Like, what is the relationship between the outward-facing customer engagement that marketing um, that marketing offers and backward planning that with their marketing team? Because marketing is very often an afterthought, I find.
Yeah, that's an interesting question because you hear branding and marketing. Even I catch myself, yeah, the two are so close together, they interchange and it's almost a feedback loop. So someone sees your brand, they might be interested, they feel a certain way, they have an expectations of X, Y, and Z based on, your branding machine that you have going. If they go through a customer experience with you, now they're into marketing, they're getting emails or they're on engaging with you on social media, or maybe they become a customer. If you have a sales team, if they, start chatting to the sales team, if your messaging isn't aligned with what you're putting out there into the brand, that's going to change the perception. And over time, that's going to add up and that could shift. If you get hundreds of thousands of people with, mismatched experiences of what you're putting out there for your brand versus, what the actual communication is, that's going to shift your brand identity. Um, so it's very, very important to have synergy between the two. What you're putting out there on your social media posts or on your website should be communicated through your emails, should be what your sales reps are also communicating. Again, if you have a sales team. So, but yeah, I mean, they need to work together. They complement each other. It's a constant feedback loop between the two of them.
Yeah. And you specialize in creative design.
So my background, as you know, is I'm working on a PhD in psychology, and I heavily focus it on neuromarketing and neuroscience, and using that to influence creative design. So could I build you something? No, absolutely not. Can I work with designers and tell them exactly where things need to be? And I'm meaning like down to where the eyes go. If a logo is up here, where's it going to shift the eyes versus, placing it here or underlining one word? How is that going to impact the whole visual design? So that would be what I consider my specialty is designing visuals or marketing assets to really get your core message across. So this could almost be back to your assumption question. Myself until 3 or 4 years ago when I started going down this PhD track, you could design the most beautiful looking ad and it could look amazing and just perfect. And then you run it through and some with AI, there's eye tracking tools where you can it'll predict where the viewer's eyes will go, how much time they'll spend on certain aspects. You run it through one of these tools and you find that your message is not even getting seen. It's
Right.
completely it's just not even getting, there's no visual activity on it or visual attention at all. So that, what looks good on the eye doesn't mean that that's what's going to get seen. So yes, making sure that there's strategy behind your ads, your social media posts, your emails, and you are testing to see, where are people going to look? Are they going to even see my core message? Um, so yeah, that's kind of, I mean, I could go on and on. I like to think I specialize in it, and it's fascinating to me to see like just shifting the color or the where a logo is placed will completely change, the whole outcome of visual attention.
Okay, I'm so glad that you said that because first of all, you've poked the AI bear. So I'm I'm gonna come back to that. But
Uh-oh.
neuromarketing is like it's really fascinating because it's finally given us hard data to show whether or not something works. And can you, as a designer or somebody who's advising designers, can you tell us what's the difference between something that simply looks good, slick, clean, and something that actually works to draw in an audience? The case study that I love, and I'm actually a little bit attuned to because I'm very familiar with their brand is Liquid Death. Now, Liquid Death,
Love them.
it is like the hot thing, like in terms of visual design and marketing a product that is like it's water. Yeah, well, it's iced tea, it's a
Yeah, yeah, they're expanding. Yeah.
but like it's unconventional, it's maverick, it's punk, but it's not grunge. It's like they've expanded into like sound systems and they have merch and they have all of these things, all of these tentacles, if you will, of their marketing tool. But at the core of their brand is the fact that nobody goes thirsty. The slogan is murder your thirst, and they're eliminating waste in terms of plastic waste. Um, so in terms of visual design, you have this company that whose owner, Mike Corello, I think his name is, who's very, avant-garde. He's very punk. He's very forward thinking. So how do you do that? How do you take for the companies out there that are just like, okay, it's standard stuff that we create. We use certain colors to do certain things. Um, how is it that somebody can bring their personality into something as literally flavorless as waffle? So,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's an amazing case study. I think what Liquid Death did is you have to break the norm. Like you have to stand out. I was just visualizing myself walking down an aisle and you see death on a can. It's like,
yeah,
what is that? Of course, it's going to get your attention. So, I think I may get the number wrong, but Dr. Ramsoy, who was like a co-pioneer of the neuromarketing world, he reported that we get like either 9 or 8 million bits of sensory input per day. So that's having to make, that sounds, that's, smells, all these different billion bits of sensory input going into your brain. So we're overloaded, right? Well, of course, our brain just goes on autopilot, and 95% of the decisions we make, we're not even realize we're making them. So how do you get to the top? It's by building something that is out of the norm. So putting death on a can. Like
yeah,
you don't see that every day, right? Your brain's on autopilot. Maybe there's like a little bit of fear in there too. You see the word death, and we're wired to detect fear over everything else as fast as possible. Otherwise, we wouldn't have survived as long as we did. Um, so I this is actually really, really
it's,
interesting. Now I'm gonna kind of dig into it offline, but yeah, I mean it just breaking the norm and sticking out and getting someone's attention to focus. And that could be transferred to any marketing you're doing. So stand out, most common way to do that is to use emotion or
yeah,
something like fear. But stand out once you get their attention, then you can, move into the more rational part of the brain and explain, what you're doing, murder
yeah.
your thirst. Perfect. I mean, honestly, I'm thinking about it. They just did it perfectly.
They did, absolutely. And it kind of like makes me wonder, if we are attracted to fear, or at least we are more emotionally aroused, if our brains kind of start firing when we detect fear, what makes certain people reach for the can and certain people kind of back off from it. That would be actually kind of interesting. And I'm curious if I'm sure they have because they're so well executed, but whether their marketing department has kind of delved into that a little bit with neuromarketing. Um,
Yeah, that's sorry, did I cut you off?
no, 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 not at all.
Okay. Yeah, that's I think you hit the key question, and that's something I'm struggling with my dissertation. So not to take this away from
Yeah.
with Death, who are amazing. But I'm doing a similar experiment, visual attention. The test visual that I'm going to have is going to have a snake in the background.
Mhm.
And the theory is that people will look at that right away over the control image, which is the same exact thing, but doesn't have a snake in the background. Um, the second piece to this would be, can I collect personality data? Like the big five personalities, and how does that impact? Because kind of like you're mentioning, fear could cause avoidance, if the person perceives it to be too fearful,
Right.
may get their attention, but in case of like an Instagram feed, they'll just scroll right through it, or maybe on the shelf, they'll just walk right past it. But if you can layer in, if you know the personality type of the person you're dealing with, maybe you can kind of alter your communication or your marketing strategy. Like Liquid Death, I'm sure they do all types of upselling and lifetime value stuff. If they had that bit of information, maybe they could alter, have different segments of marketing based upon what their personality type is.
Yeah.
Uh, I think that would be really interesting, maybe borderline Big Brother-ish, but but pretty cool. I so this is again maybe spiraling off topic, but the whole marketing is all about like getting data and seeing what people are doing and knowing what they're interested in. And there's the other side of the fence where you know it's my data, like delete it, get rid of it. I don't want you knowing what I'm doing, what I'm searching. I always, maybe it's because I'm in the profession, I always sat on the fence of have all my data, like don't show me ads for Barbie dolls. I don't care. Like I don't want to see that. Show me ads for things I'm actually interested in, and maybe I'll find some of them useful. But anyway, that was just a mini tangent on the whole data privacy and tracking.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so Big Brother AI, I guess in terms of design and creative design, so many companies are leaning on AI to generate their images, their logos, you name it. They're leaning on AI to really lead the way in terms of their marketing materials. Where do you, how wise is that and where do you see it going? And the reason I ask this question is because I have heard at least that visual AI aims for mediums. They don't like the mean in terms of design, not only in terms of text, but in terms of design. Give me your thoughts. Like AI for companies designing marketing product and even brand product.
Yeah, I think if you don't adapt it, you're gonna get left behind.
Yeah.
I myself personally, over the last 2 weeks, have just been, I've always used AI, but like, I would feed it a research paper and be like, summarize this for me, and then I would, chat with it about the paper or something like that. But I've actually been like diving into like all these different agents and like, oh, you could build a whole marketing team of agents. Um, I don't think it replaces a marketing team. Maybe it reduces, unfortunately. Maybe some people will, not survive it, but you're just going to get left behind. So I was watching this one video. Somebody created an agent that would create TikTok videos and post it all completely hands off.
Yeah.
Um, they said overnight it created 500 versions of one single ad. I'm sure 450 of them were garbage ads and terrible and performed awful. But maybe you got 50 out of those that were decent, and then it would post it, it would gather the data, figure out which ones are working, and then keep running the ones that are working. So
Interesting.
it's of course like I have working with me now one of the best designers that I've ever worked with, but you can't compete with creating 500 videos overnight and posting it all hands off. So I
Yeah.
think you still need that person, like a creative designer there overseeing it.
Right.
But I mean, how do you compete with that in like hours just doing that?
It's flooding the market too, if that's the case. If it created 450 things that did not resonate or were
Mhm.
poorly received, then that means enough people had to see the 450 garbage ads
Yep.
for it to learn that those were not working. So so the market's flooded. Um,
Yeah, I mean yeah, I don't know exactly how. Yeah, I mean that's a great point. That means 450 ads were put out there. I would imagine if there's not now, there will be soon that, something like TikTok or Facebook would be like, this is clearly bot, bots doing this. Like no human could do that. So
yeah.
maybe chill out a little bit. Um, but still, even if you're not posting, if it could create, that many different variations in that little time, you just, unfortunately, you just can't compete with it. Like you have to adapt it and you have to figure out how to make it work for you. And maybe if you're a small shop, like a 10-person company, you have one marketing person, maybe this is great. The larger big companies, keep someone overseeing it. That's just, I don't think AI is quite there yet where it can run completely hands-free. I'm not sure it'll ever be, to be honest, because you just need that human judgment, in my opinion. Like there's an art to science, and I'm not sure that a computer, yeah, I'm not sure that a computer could learn that art. I mean, who knows? Honestly, I don't know.
There is an art to science. I believe that and I've used it before. I love that. That's amazing. Um, so getting back to creative design, um, I feel like there are, and assumptions in general, I feel like there are certain companies that consider marketing as expenses rather than investments. Um, marketing, branding, and really the whole of communications is a backbone structure that, can not only mitigate problems that you might face, but it can also prevent future problems that you might have otherwise if you didn't have a branding or marketing strategy. So explain to me how creative design can really set apart a company from everyone else in its class, but also can be used to prevent problems in crisis situations. When a company faces difficulty, how can creative design be leveraged to communicate?
Yeah. Um, I think unfortunately, marketing is the first to go, the first to get cut with if there's any type of, you know, issues, your company's not making money or something. It's just marketing is, I think, at the executive level, the average tenure for a CMO is less than 2 years, which is pretty
Oh,
crazy. Like,
really?
yeah, I mean, this was like, I don't know, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, but it always stuck with me because, like, obviously that's the path that I want to go down.
Yeah.
It was a little scary because, you need at least a year to get in there and understand what's going on and rebuild things. So, um, but anyway, I think going back to Liquid Death, like they did it perfectly. That is how you can utilize creative strategy to make your brand stand out. And it's just undeniable value there.
Yeah.
Um, Ultimately, your marketing needs to sell. Like, how do the age-old question of marketing attribution? Personally, this may be a hot take. I'm less concerned with, did this bleed or did this purchase come from Facebook or did it come from Google or did it, was it a direct mail? I'm just really looking at what's our target. Like, if we need to sell $100,000 this month, what's our target? How far off are we? Then I'll start like getting into the weeds and really digging in there. But there's so many like I could say you send me a direct mail, I could open it up, look at it, throw it in the trash, and then 2 days later, I go on Facebook and I see your brand again. I could keep scrolling, shut my laptop. The next day, I could go on and just be like, "Oh yeah, I saw these guys. Let me look up. Let me look at their website." That's going to look like an organic visit, but that's far from organic, right? Like we, spent money on sending them direct mail. Um, Maybe it was a paid ad that they saw. You spent money there, so. Ultimately, the bottom line is you have to work together with whoever the business leader is. If it's, a larger company, that'll be like a sales VP or something, or a chief revenue officer. You have to work hand in hand with them to make sure that you guys are hitting your profitability goals or your revenue targets. Um, and something like branding is almost impossible to tie back like ROI. Like how do you do that? Right? You can't. You just I guess this comes back to something I wish I knew a couple years ago. You need to be if you're working marketing and you're kind of climbing up the corporate ladder, you need to seriously interview who your boss is going to be or who the CEO is and ask them questions like what do you think of marketing? How do what do you think of branding and things like that? Because your boss has to understand that you can't put a dollar or an ROI value on branding.
Right.
Branding is, shifting perception, creating emotion when people see you, a connection with your brand. Like you can't put an ROI on that. That may pay dividends later, when I don't know if you have a subscription, if their subscription is winding down, and you go to renew them. Like it's that ties into the lifetime value. But yeah, you have to work with people who unfortunately who understand the value of marketing and understand that you can't really tie dollars back to ROI.
Right, right. And like separating yourself in the market, not to ride the beverage train because like I've had very little experience in beverage, but one of my favorite marketing guys to listen to is Rory Sutherland, and he went on this. He gave the most perfect example of Red Bull. Red Bull, over here competing with, well, is it a soft drink? Is it what is it exactly? And they kind of took it from the perspective of it's a shot of medicine. So you have all of these soft drinks that are about yay big sitting on a shelf, and then you have Red Bull, which is just like this.
Mhm.
And it's almost solving a problem with how you're feeling. I'm feeling logy. I'm feeling dragged. Like I am dragged right now. And it's anticipating somebody being fatigued, which is not uncommon in our society. And that's what it aimed to address. And so Rory Sutherland had he broke it down beautifully, and he was like, so the designers for Red Bull. Sure, they did color theory. The primary colors are used. They do red, blue, and yellow, I believe. But they wanted to make it more of they wanted to give it more of a medicinal feel to it. So they put it in like this little dose. They offer people a dose, and it's something that they can just shoot back, and it solves their fatigue issue. Um, I always find that those creative decisions really interesting. And as a result of that creative decision, I have to backstep here, they created their own market. They created a class within a class of and so Pepsi doesn't touch them. Coca-Cola doesn't touch them. The other beverages on the shelf don't touch them. Um, so when you're sitting in a room with a client, how do you advise them? Um, to make them stand out within their class.
But ultimately, it's understand you have to understand your customers' pain points, and then you
Yeah.
have to understand how you can alleviate their pain points and what makes your solution unique.
Would you say that the pain point, well, at least in consumer marketing, right? So like, would you say that those pain points always lead to feelings? Because I feel like there is a difference between consumer marketing and corporate. So like, if you're dealing with the everyday American who's going to look for something on a shelf, Um, there are ways you can elicit emotions with creative design and marketing. When you're selling a business to other clients, how do you elicit those same emotions, or how do you tap into emotion when it's not a thing to be transacted?
Yeah, so I actually am a believer in, I know they are, so I think you're right. First of all, they are B2B and B2C are very, very different. Most of the time B2C people are scrolling through their phone or they don't even know they're looking for something, they're just bored.
Yeah.
Um, B2B people may be more dialed in and understand I don't want to say they're more sophisticated, but maybe their mindset at that time is a little bit more tuned and sophisticated. But at the end of the day, they still have a human brain. It still functions the same, right? Emotions can still, just because it's a B2B company, emotions are still going to get their attention. Um, so I would still lean into that. Pick an emotion. Again, it depends, what kind of industry you're in. There's, different emotions work a little bit better. In the finance industry, we tend to lean on fear, things like loss aversion, missing out on revenue and things like that. If it's a SaaS product, it's um, are you missing time from your kids because you were doing manual work where this software can reduce that? So maybe something like that, like really figuring out how do we, I don't want to say hit them, what's the right way to say this? Not hit them where it hurts or not hit home, but how do we like make it very personal, very relevant to them? So not saying something like our product will reduce your workload by, half or something like that. It's, get home, see your kids, spend more time with your kids by using our product. So that is very personal. You're getting their attention, like, oh, I can spend more time with my family. And then you're putting the solution there by using this product. So I do think that B2C and B2B are very, very different, but at the end of the day, everyone's brain functions relatively the same. Yeah,
Mhm.
relatively.
Relevant.
Yeah, because of course everyone's different, but everyone responds to emotion. Most people respond to emotion. And that still is the best way to capture attention. So capture attention, address, surface the pain point and then position your product to, reduce that dissonance or reduce, solve their problem, solve their pain point.
Um, if someone listening today is a business manager, a communications director, or someone from a marketing team, how best can they integrate into business strategy? And what's kind of the mindset shift they should make about marketing and design as it has to do with business operations?
Yeah, think beyond the click
Yeah.
is if I could say it one sentence, think beyond the click. It's cool to get, put a post out there or an ad and get a bunch of people clicking or a bunch of traffic to your website. But you really need to understand what happens after they go to your website. Okay, now what? Like what happened? Did they just leave right away? Do you have a form? Did they start filling out the form? How many people filled it out? Is it, a multiple page form? Are people dropping off on the second page? Or are you asking a certain question that people are just getting to and leaving? Say they submit the whole form. What happens then? Is it routed to sales? How long did it take sales to call them?
Yeah.
Can we analyze the transcript? Like, what's the sentiment analysis there? For lack of better terms, what's the vibe of the call? How did that go? What happens after the call? Do you trigger emails to go, hey, just talk to you. Here's a summary of, blah, 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 X, Y, and Z. Um, do you have cadences to chase them after that? Do you wait 4 days and then do you throw them into a retargeting campaign on Google or social media?
Yeah.
So just keep thinking what happens next? Like what next? What next? What now? Um, and going back to what I said about the ROI, think about ROI. No business leader cares how many clicks your ad got or how many people hit your website. They care how much money did the company, not how much money did marketing drive, how much money did the company make that month or that quarter or that year. If the company exceeds our goals, nobody cares what marketing did because it's understood that marketing is influencing all these other things across the company. They're influencing the brand, they're helping sales with their communication, they're pushing people to sales. They're helping people sign contracts. Um, for example, if we in my world, we send out contracts and we need people to sign. If that contract sits for a couple of days, we send out marketing that is, designed to make them more comfortable with that decision. Like, hey, you're in this industry. Here's this person, this person, this person. Here are their reviews of, what they said. So get them comfortable with signing the contract. So as long as the company is hitting their goals, no one's really going to question what marketing is doing. It's when you're not hitting your goals, then the first place people look is within marketing. So, I guess think beyond the click, be always asking, well, what happens next? What next? What now? What next? And be in tune with your sales organization and make sure that you guys are aligned and working together.
Okay. Well, and that was for the teams. Now, if you were talking to a CEO, how would you advise them to integrate marketing into their business strategy?
Yeah. Again, I would tie everything back to ROI. Um, if you say you think you can raise your conversions by X%. Again, if you have a form on your website, um, you get 10,000 visits a month, and right now you only have a 10% conversion. If you pitch to your CEO, you give me $20,000 to spend this quarter, I can get that conversion to 30% or even 15%. That's a significant amount of new leads now coming down your pipeline. And then you can just work all the way down the funnel with your different conversion rates. So you give me $15,000 to spend this quarter. I can increase our revenue by X amount of dollars by increasing the conversion rate on our website, by, retargeting people who are in our application funnel. I think I'll get 3% more all the way down the rest of the funnel. So you have to just think economically, and that's what the CEO cares about. He doesn't care, put whatever you want out on social media. Like he could care less what goes out, and so maybe not care less, but
Yeah.
he's got bigger things going on, than what's being posted to social media or what the ads look like. He needs to know, what kind of value are we getting? How is what you're doing impacting our bottom line?
I have actually heard a CEO said media doesn't matter as much as the work. But at the very same time, I don't think that the inverse is recognized that, media can sometimes drive the work, and it
Oh
certainly
yeah.
does drive the impression. If you're needing attention and you're wondering why, like, no one is paying attention to what you're doing, it's usually that mindset, that media is secondary to operations.
Yeah, so I didn't want to give off the wrong message. That is,
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. Not that he doesn't care, but he trusts he should. I mean, maybe going back to my other point, be careful about who you sign up to work for. Because you don't want a CEO telling you what, don't post this, post that, don't or change the image this way, or I like it to look like this. You don't want that. So what I mean by he doesn't care what you're posting on is he has full faith in he should have full faith in what you're doing, and he doesn't need to check, what's going out there. Of course, it should be clean, polished, professional, um, optimized for your core messages of what you're trying to get across and your branding. So yeah, I mean, it all works together and it all ties together.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today, and throwing out some tidbits for those marketing teams and communications teams out there that might need a little bit of inspiration, and bringing your expertise to this. And it was a great time to catch up, Evan. My goodness, I think it's been almost 2 years since I saw you last time, but I've been keeping tabs on LinkedIn, and you're doing some pretty amazing things. And I can't wait to read your dissertation when it comes out. Glad to hear that you're getting your way through it, because boy, it's that's quite an undertaking. So
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for having me. It was great to see you.
yeah, it's great to see you too. Okay, thank you.